Welcome back to another episode of the X Podcast. I'm Brenda Rigney. I'm a dream business coach, and I work with midlife women entrepreneurs, either leaving their corporate career, about to start on that entrepreneurial journey, or maybe you've been at it for the last couple of years. And in order for you to get to that 100K or 200K mark, you really need to kind of go back and look at some of your systems, your offers, your strategic freebies, and your sales funnels. I'm here to help you do that. Today on the podcast, I'm going to do just a solo session around setting healthy boundaries. This is a conversation I continually have with my clients, and I'm always readily available to talk about. Because I think when I go back to like my childhood, when I go back to like my teenage years, even adulthood, even going into corporate life and working as a manager, director, and eventually an executive VP, no one ever taught me how to set healthy boundaries. And it was always something that I struggled with, whether it was with my friends, my family, technology. As technology advanced and got easier for us, it also created, more boundary leaks in my life. And then obviously, as I started my own entrepreneurial journey and working with clients and vendors and coaches, I didn't necessarily know how to set those healthy boundaries. So today we're going to talk about 4 things that I think are necessary to set healthy boundaries. The first one, and I'll just give you an overview, is going to be about defining your vision, your values, and your goals. The second thing is understanding the boundary shield of influence. And this is a great practice that I learned from Suzanne Conrad, who's a life coach, and she's been in my sort of orbit for a number of years. And then auditing relationships, as well as things in your life that could be creating those boundary leaks. And then the fourth element are statements to help you set boundaries with people. That includes yourself, as well as obviously people that are sort of in that sphere of influence with you. Now, one of the things I'm going to direct you to is the show notes for this podcast episode. You can actually find a boundary guide tool that I've actually incorporated into this podcast. And I want to encourage you to download it. It's free, and you can actually learn as we go along in this podcast. So there'll be like some tools, some reference pages that I'll refer to as we're talking more about setting boundaries. So let's just tackle one thing right off the bat. What do I mean by setting healthy boundaries? I think setting healthy boundaries means that I'm making choices and decisions from my vision, my values, and my goals. My vision, values, and goals are what I believe are sort of like the anchors to helping me guide in my choices every single day. There are things that come into my inbox. There are invitations that I get to show up to networking events or to go out for a movie with girlfriends. I get to decide whether or not I want to be in integrity and say yes to that, and a wholehearted yes, or say no, that actually doesn't align with what I want to be doing in my life, in my week, in my day today. One of the things that I always sort of struggled if I go back in time is that when I gave my yes, it meant that I was sort of giving a portion of myself. And I had a really tough time saying no to people because I was worried that I would, one, hurt their feelings. I would alienate people. Maybe they wouldn't invite me the next time if I kept saying no. But I didn't realize that when I wasn't saying no, I was actually making my yes meaningless. There were times where I would say yes to things, but I didn't necessarily show up being my most authentic self. And what I mean by that is that I might go to an event, I might go to a conference, I might sign up to work with a coach, but then just not be fully engaged in it. And what I mean by fully engaged, again, and authentic is that when I think about my vision for my life, the values that help guide my decision-making and my choices, and the goals that I set out for the next, say, 6 months to a year for my life, my business, my relationships. When I said yes to something that didn't align to those things, I was out of integrity with myself. I wasn't showing up as my most authentic self. And I would go back and reflect, and it would show up for me. Like the telltale sign for me is it would show up as some type of constriction in my body. I would definitely have it showing up in my thoughts, like I'm not good enough. Why is this not feeling great? Why am I working with this client and it's not flowing like it is with this other client? Because maybe I said yes to this client for a variety of reasons that weren't aligned to my vision, values, and goals. And I can definitely think of a couple of clients, and they could too if they listened to this podcast, where it was like, yeah, it didn't feel right. We didn't necessarily get into sync. We weren't in flow around it. We both said yes to a package, a contract that wasn't necessarily aligned to what we wanted. And we do that all the time sometimes. Again, like sort of that people-pleasing tendency. It's like, oh, I got to help everybody. It could also be a bit of scarcity thinking. And like, as a business owner, it's like, if I don't say yes to this customer or this client, like I might never sell another offer again, which is so completely not true. but we get into that sort of fixed thinking, and then it guides our decisions, our choices. So you see, when like we're not setting those healthy boundaries with ourselves, with our work, with our relationships, it can really implode into different areas of our life. It really restricts us from saying yes wholeheartedly to things. We kind of live in that miserable maybe, where it's like we ghost people, we don't get back to people. We're like, I'll think about it. Or we put out offers that are meaningless, like we should go for coffee sometime, when we have no intention of booking a coffee session, or we can completely forget about it because we've said yes to so many things that we can't even manage our time effectively. So the first step, I think, just to review, is defining our vision, values, and goals. And how do we do that? Well, this is some of the work that I do with my clients, and inside the Aligned AF community, it's actually kind of work that we do within the first 1 or 2 modules. There's 9 modules of learning, and you can explore these on your own. There's a lot of do-it-yourself activities, reflection guides, workbooks, videos, guest mentor sessions, all talking about how to set vision, values, and goals in your life. But if I was to sort of summarize it, a vision to me is where I see my life, and that incorporates my business, my relationships, my health, my wealth, my community impact, my spirituality, all these different domains of my life into one vision. For me, it's quite clear, like in 10 years, and when I set this vision, I'm envisioning that it's almost like another 4 years from now that this 10-year vision is going to come to light. And I really set it sort of around the time that I was going through my divorce and repositioning my career into entrepreneurship and getting my kids settled in a new living situation, because we weren't living with their father anymore. Well, they still were, but I wasn't. So all of those things caused a lot of change in my life, and it was important for me to ground myself on one sort of core vision. And so my vision back in 2018, when this was all going on in my life, was to set a vision for 2028, which is only another 4 years from now. But it sort of led off with, like, we wake up in the morning and we take the dogs for a walk on the beach. And notice because I'm envisioning in my vision that I have a partner. That partner now is Scott. I've met him. We have dogs. We go for beach walks. We go for trail walks. Everything in my vision is sort of coming true. And I've designed it to be that intentional. I tell a story of kind of what a day in the life of Brenda would look like in 2028. Who are the people that I'm working with? Who are the connections that I have that have like that meaningful intention in my life, that I'm spending time with these people? They lift me up, they have my back, and and that we share things together in a really meaningful way. That includes my daughters, Scott, obviously, members of my family, clients, even my VA, right? So it's just like these people are like really integral to my life and my business. They're mentioned in my vision. There's things that I'm doing, places that I'm going, things that I'm learning, listening to, dancing to, eating, indulging in, that lift me up. Values, I have 4 values. Brene Brown will talk about having 2 values, right? So you can make decisions really quickly. I know some people that have like 12 or even company values of like 13, and they expect all employees to memorize them and uphold them. I want to keep it simple. I keep them to 4. And I don't have different values for my company or my life. I just have one set of values. When we talk about work-life balance, there is no work-life balance. It's just like we have one life. There's one Brenda. And I want to show up authentically in my work with my clients as I do in my life with people that are important to me in my relationships. They are integrity, love, adventure, and curiosity. So those 4 values guide my decisions. When I'm thinking about strategies for my business, it's like, does it lift me up in the field of love, adventure, curiosity, integrity? If it doesn't, I don't do it. And I may do it another time. Like, I don't throw things out. I just put it on another list. Like right now it's on my do not do list, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to be a good idea for my business or my life 3 years from now, when maybe I need to have some technology systems in order for me to do that activity that I thought of. So it's okay to say no. It's okay not to do everything. And I think that's also really important when I think about my clients working with me. It's like, yeah, we're going to generate ideas for your business. You don't have to do all of them. You just need to do the ones that align with your vision, values, and goals. Now let's talk about goals. For me, goals, I have no more than 5 to 7 goals a year that I work on in my life and in my business. Each goal should only last for 3 months. I need to be able to break those goals down. So I may have like a goal like, oh, I want to get another $100,000 in my business. Well, that's a big goal. And so I'll break it down into small parts. And it's not so much of like, I need to get 100,000, but maybe it's more like I need to have a better lead generation strategy for speaking events. Okay, my second key element of setting healthy boundaries is knowing about the boundary shield of influence. So the boundary shield of influence, I want you to definitely turn to the workbook. You'll see it in the beginning pages of the workbook. And it's basically a diagram. So I'm going to map it out for everybody from an audio standpoint, but I really encourage you to download the workbook so that you can follow along. The boundary shield of influence, you will see a number of rings. There's 72 rings. You sit within that first ring. So you'll see in the workbook, there's a little sort of stick figure. That's you. And that's you with your vision, your values, and your goals. And all those things that you hold important to you, your beliefs, your passions, right? All of those things that make up you. No one is allowed to come into that first boundary ring. That is just for you. That is just for Brenda. And the only time that somebody gets close to that ring, maybe on ring number 2, would be maybe an infant. No, they're not able to lift their head yet. You're a parent, and so they're very dependent on you until they're doing tummy time and rolling over and starting to, make motions to start crawling, and their neck gets stronger. And then promptly your children should maybe go out to ring 3, 4, 5, right? This is a conversation I have with parents all the time about setting boundaries with young children, emerging adult children. Where should your children live on your boundary shield? We'll get to that in a few minutes. So this boundary shield, ring number 1 is just you, not your husband, not your mother-in-law, not your dog, not your business, not your iPhone, only you. Now, if you're feeling like some of those things that I just mentioned are in, you can promptly remove them by doing the third thing, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, is around auditing your boundary shield. But let's just talk about those rings on your boundary shield. So ring number 1 is just for you, your vision, your values, and goals. That's it. That's all the capacity can handle. 2, 3, 4, these are people that love you, care about you, and have your back. Oprah will talk about that there's like 3 people in her life that love her, care about her, and have her back, and sit within that sort of like 2, 3, 4 ring space. Stedman, her partner, Gail, one of her best friends, and then her business manager that I believe started working with her when she left public TV and over to start Harpo Productions and all the legacy that she's created with that. So despite all the, the people that she has in her orbit and all the people that she goes to at like an Oscar party, those people don't necessarily sit in ring 2, 3, and 4. The 3 people that I just mentioned are in that sort of close vicinity to her. So right now you might be thinking, well, Brenda, I've got like 843 people in my Facebook group. They're in ring number 3. And like, they're not. Those are not the people that need to be there. They probably should be in like ring number 8, 9, and 10, if that. So think about it. It's like, who are those people that are important to you? And maybe some of you might be saying, I don't know if I have somebody in ring 2, 3, and 4. Well, that may be one of the goals that you have this year, is I want to develop a close friendship with somebody. I want to have a romantic relationship with, a new partner in my life. And so I need to actually create space, because maybe I've allowed the 843 people in my Facebook group to sit in ring number 2. And I actually want to have a deeper connection with my spouse instead, is in sitting on ring number 52. So think about it. Who are those people, knowing what those rings are? And I would look at, vendors, your graphic designer, your copywriter. They don't need to be sitting in ring number 2. They need to be sitting in ring number like 7, 8, 9, 10. And maybe if you have a meeting with them today, you need to bring them into ring number 5. But once that call's done, you need to promptly place them back in ring number 9, where they reside most of the time. So think about it. What's important to you? Sometimes parents, like I've had to put sometimes my parents on ring number like 35. Why 35? I don't know. It just felt energetically right for me. Until I actually had the boundary shield, I didn't know how to articulate that. And I didn't know how to create the motions, the movement to make that happen. So check out the workbook. Look at the boundary shield, see where some of those people are in your life right now, and are they in the right place? And just knowing too, sometimes people fall into those rings because 1, you didn't grant them permission, and 2, they just sort of drifted in there. If you've got a relative right now, your Aunt Gladys, who loves to comment on whether or not you're wearing your skirts are too short or your waistband looks too big, you can make that choice to put her in the right ring. That brings me to my third element of setting healthy boundaries. You need to be able to do an audit of the relationships you have in your life. There are people, like I mentioned, that have invited themselves into various rings that should be there, might not be there. Maybe you've got, a best friend right now that's in ring number 18, and you really need to bring them closer, because you allowed all these other people to kind of be close to you that aren't necessarily people that love you, care about you, and have your back. And your best friend Shelly is way out in ring number like 18 or worse, 71, and you need to bring her in closer. So what I want you to do is to do an audit. Inside the workbook, you'll see a page in there that has a space for you to write down names of people. I think there's space up to about 20. And you assess where they are right now. So there's an opportunity too to also write down some comments. Now, the key thing about auditing, it's not like you have to now rush out there and tell everybody that you just place them in the right ring. Hi, Bobby, I had you here, but now you need to be over here. It has nothing to do with them. It's you, right? It's you and your vision, your values, your goals, understanding where you're putting people on the right ring, where you're not. And does it change anything for you? Does it create more space? Does it create more openness? Does it create more love, connection for you with people that are important to you in your life and the things that you're spending time on? Now, you can also in those rings and when you're auditing, you can take like items. Like I'm holding up my iPhone here. So it's like, I spend too much time on my email. I spend too much time on this project. Like we have offers in our business right now as entrepreneurs that maybe you set a goal at the beginning of the year that I'm going to set out this new offer. I'm going to launch it to my clients in March. And now it's July and it hasn't launched yet. I would say you've got an unhealthy boundary with that project. So assess where it needs to be. Maybe you've got it out in ring number 57 and it needs to come in closer right now. What actions are you going to need to take to actually get that project back on the, back on your calendar, back in your to-do list and getting it completed? And make a commitment to yourself. I'm going to show up every Friday. I'm going to set aside like a power hour and crunch through this project every hour, Friday morning, 10 to 11 for the next 4 weeks and get it done. And then it's done, right? So that's some of the things that you'll see progress in the relationships, the connections that you have to things, people in your life that are going to help you flourish in your business and in your relationships. And then the last resource that's in the workbook are statements, boundary setting statements that you may need to have with yourself and that you may need to have with other people. Let's talk about Aunt Gladys again, the aunt that likes to come into the kitchen and, at a family event and give you some feedback, right, on your potato salad or on your waistline. And, there's some things that you can say to Aunt Gladys that could be very important to say and to establish, but kind and generous, right? We don't want to necessarily give people the hand because I think that's where we have also learned about boundaries is like, oh, we can just like ghost people or shut people down or unfollow people, which you can do. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you not to do it, but there's another way that you can handle it through some of these boundary setting statements. Thank you, Aunt Gladys, for your suggestion on the potato salad dressing. I'm actually trying out a new recipe and I feel really good about, playing with it this weekend at the family barbecue. Or thanks, Aunt Gladys, for your feedback about my waistline. I'm actually on a healthcare plan and I'm got it covered. So it could just be simply something like that. Because once you start getting into the practice of setting healthy boundaries for yourself and using all 4 of these elements, the people that love you, care about you, and have your back will support you no matter what, because they want to see you be successful, they want to see you thrive, and they want to see you flourish. So don't feel like you can't stand your ground, set those healthy boundaries for yourself and those relationships you have with the things and the people in your life. Let me know if this was helpful today. Make sure that you download the workbook, spend some time listening to this podcast again and work through some of the activities. And if you have any questions, reach out to me on Instagram at It's Brenda Rigney, and I'd be happy to answer your questions in the DMs. Take care, everybody.